is important, you can point me to scripture in ministry. So I would probably start with that and go thinking about that chapter, those chapters, because I think that's really, really important. Conforming to scripture, especially the ones that the congregation is identified as requisite for ministry. But, I'd also
test to the biblical foundation to your beliefs.
Yeah.
The quizzing out of scripture, you know what this is.
Yeah.
But so I would talk about that, and then I would talk about I think where it says diversified musical styles, because I think that's something that I know that's something I appreciate, is the use of multiple styles done excellently, not a split service, but flowing together seamlessly, so that like not rejecting something just because it's old or new. Great wealth of Christian worship tradition that exists.
Good. John, let's hear your 2 cents worth.
Something about Jason and Missy hit on. First thing that jumps out is the ability to not only the knowledge and ability to do present day modern worship, but also multiple other styles of praise and worship music at the same time. We want to think about that. I'd also talk about the ability to lead and teach. Years of experience and capability.
For those of you that are PKs, this is not a bad church to mention that, because they're looking for someone that wants to become a member of their church, and you know what I mean.
How many ever started?
3 of you, I think. Yeah, but I think that, and there's a way you can drop that, having grown up in the church as the son of a preacher man. But that's let's take a look at another one here. We've got worship pastor, Calvary Chapel, Fort Worth. Who wants to?
Applicants only deal.
What was that?
A lot of it says local applicants only in dry and all caps.
Oh, really? I hadn't seen that.
So my question is, when you see something like that, they're like local applicants only, or must have 5 years of experience, or must be this. Do you still apply for it, or do you throw it out? Do you try to convince them that it's an expectation that you don't need that expectation?
Well, how hungry are you?
And how many other applications are there?
Yeah, if you have a pool of 75 applications to choose from, I wouldn't bother sending them anything. But if you're in a situation like Missy or John, where you've got a spouse that may be living in some area, and it could be with John that they know that Marathon's going to send the family to Houston, and this is close to Houston. It would be worth, if it would be close to. It would be natural for John to say, "Hey, I'd like to be local. We're going to be moving there in 6 months. You want me?" Does that make sense? Now that's sort of interesting, because Texas has their own culture. You know what I mean? Well,
also be a thing saying they want local applicants only. Could it be a thing where you say, I might not be local, but I'm willing to become local?
I'd be willing to relocate, sure.
Well, I mean, obviously, you would be relocated.
I wonder why they would
Yeah,
put
from
that.
here.
I wonder why they would.
My thought about that is that they maybe have had a history of people coming, being a worship minister for 6 months and leaving, and so they want somebody who's tied to the community. And
That might
get
be.
out of there.
I hired a tech director from Yeah, it was Indianapolis area, Indiana, somewhere anyway. And he moved, and we paid a bundle of money to move him. And in 3 months, they resigned and went back to Indiana because his wife was homesick. And I've had applicants ask me, as I interviewed, like in Ohio, what do you think about moving far away from your home of origin, and my answer to that, I remember it clearly, was I'm trying to figure out where God would like me to serve, and if missionaries, when they went to Africa, would pack their belongings and their family belongings in caskets so that they could be buried in them in the new land. I think I need to follow an example like that. Oh. So, I probably thought of a better way to say it. Well, what else are we seeing from this?
It's ridiculously specific. I mean, not anything that you wouldn't see in a seasoned worship pastor, but they have in mind what they want. They call out, preferably technically sound on acoustic guitar, seasoned singer.
They could draw you a picture of who they want.
They have qualifications, and on top of that, they have specific responsibilities, and they. I mean,
already telling you how often what rehearsals for their band.
Yeah, it kind of leads me to think like what Jason was saying. They've had people come in and run out in a matter of months. And
That
so
might be.
They're looking for someone to fit the job and to stick to the job because they're sick of people flaking.
What?
It kind of feels like a puppeteer. Like, the pastor is kind of like the head dude, and whatever he says goes.
Because your contact is all for Pastor Tom.
Yeah, I noticed that too, that he was getting the resumes, not a layperson.
Fort Worth, the Fort Worth, Arlington, Dallas area is massive.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredibly huge. And what almost pops into my head, the whole, local thing and the thought process of wanting to escape quickly, it almost acts like it's in a rough neighborhood or something. It's in a non-desirable neighborhood that, people don't really want to stay in.
Well, and even the one we looked at a minute ago is in Michigan City, Indiana, which is almost the suburb of Chicago, and it's right next to Gary.
Yeah.
So,
Indiana, Gary.
but
Oh, is that right?
yeah. So
Interesting.
But so, just consider location too. Looking at because they didn't mention anything about it setting. They didn't say, "Oh, we're next to a scenic ferry," or
Yeah.
Like they're having a hard time finding it because this was posted in July. The
Ah.
one before this was posted in October, so it's more recent.
Yeah, that's
And
something to
if
think
this
of.
is still up from July and they haven't found somebody yet, it sounds like they're having a very hard time finding somebody to fit those exact specific specifications that they want.
So what I'm hearing is you guys probably would not apply for this position.
It seems, and it seems like it might even be the flip side of what we talked about a few minutes ago. It seems like the church is almost unwilling to be flexible at all. Because, they lay out just in the application process exactly what they want, which is both strategic, but also, if they are stuck on that, like it is the final say all, do all, then, you're not, as a worship pastor, a lot of times it seems like worship leaders come in both with the concept of working with the church, but at the same time wanting to move in some direction. And it seems like they have in mind what direction they want to go, and that may not mesh with a lot of people.
So, would it be wrong? Because I know some businesses, they don't want you to contact them, period. But most senior pastors will hold a conversation with somebody about their church, about direction and what they're wanting. And would it be wrong to go, okay, local applicants only? Let me try to figure out why. Would it be wrong to call them up and say, hey, I'm really interested in this position, but you have this disclaimer on here that says local applicants only. I was wondering if I could kind of dig into that for a minute and figure out what your objection
Yeah.
so that,
Yeah, and if you would consider someone that was willing to become local.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
somebody said something like this already, but it seems to me from the description that there's a distinct possibility this could be one of those jobs where you get micromanaged. A lot.
Might be. Yeah.
It seems possible.
Another statement, though, to say on this is if you're in a situation where you're putting the word out, doesn't take long to send an email to, so you can apply someplace where you're not sure you want to have it. And especially my advice to someone that's coming out of college, every time you have a chance to interview, do it, because it gives you practice. In my first position, I interviewed, and this was a semester before I graduated. While I was on my internship, I interviewed 3 times, and 2 of them were churches I wasn't interested in. But it was a great opportunity to get experience. And the other church I went and interviewed at, because they were in Los Angeles, and I got to go to Disneyland during the interview. And that's the church I went to, and I still had to go back and do my student teaching at K-State to finish that up, and they held the position for a semester for me. So the fact that I that summer had interviewed twice, so when I went to this interview that was important, I had a little experience. That was really helpful. So I just, even if there's a church you don't think you've got an interest in, go ahead and do an interview. It could tell you a lot. You could learn a lot about how not to answer questions in stupid ways like you did in that first interview.
What do you do in a church that you're not that interested in says yes?
You don't have to go. You say, well, thank you so much for considering me, seeking other opportunities at this point. And you know what? That actually, when we're thinking of kingdom work, the process of interviewing is figuring out if you fit the church and the church fits you. It's less of a sales thing than it is trying to see God's direction and the fit of that ministry. And if you can get an interview to where it's going that way, where you're all cooperatively working that way, that really makes it a positive experience. So, okay, not very spiritual today, but very practical. And hope this stuff is helpful to you. I will, for your final project, I will actually give you a job description. It's Third Christian Church. It's not First Christian Church. It's not Second, but it's Third Christian Church. And it'll have a job description, and you'll put a cover letter together with that. So I'll get that to you here pretty soon. So, thank you very much. Say goodbye to Renette.
That was last.